This spring began unusually warm in New York City, unlike previous years when cold days lingered. The sunny and warm weather outside seemed to fuel the female population's irrepressible desire and longing for male attention. Robert was preparing to celebrate the birthday of his favorite mother-in-law, Alice. If we talk about Alice, she not only retains a slender figure, despite her age. She is 50 years old, but also has a captivating appearance with beautiful curly white hair, slightly full lips, and an aura of youth in the soul. Her wide hips, indicative of having many children, only add to her appeal. However, what truly mesmerizes Robert is her enchanting voice. If you want, she could easily engage in the provision of those very services on the phone, because the mother-in-law, talking to him as if whispering her passionate, seductive, soft voice, so and urging to throw her $1,000 on the account to continue and continue. After picking up his wife from work, they decided to visit his mother-in-law, whom he affectionately called Mom. Robert was already anticipating meeting her, for not only did he love his wife, but he also harbored a secret desire for older women, particularly Alice. While they were driving, Ileana decided to call her mother to let her know of her imminent arrival. However, Alice was not fully prepared and was currently taking a shower. Hearing that her mother-in-law was washing her exquisite body, Robert's imagination became so vivid that he almost lost control of the steering wheel, and all for a glimpse of his dream. Robert suffered considerable agony that he could not peek, now at his mother-in-law. Upon reaching their destination, they pressed the doorbell. Alice quickly opened the door and swiftly removed herself to the bathroom, shouting, "Please come in." Robert and Ileana took off their shoes and waited in the living room. Eventually, Alice came out, still damp from her shower, but she was no longer very embarrassed by her son-in-law. Clad in just a towel, she settled on the couch across from her daughter and son-in-law. The television was playing in the background as they talked, but Robert seemed distracted, as if his hearing was off. His gaze stopped on his mother-in-law's feet, tracing them from her toes to the towel. She was sitting with one leg crossed over the other, resting her bent knee on the couch and the other stretched out loosely on the floor. The mother-in-law carelessly decided to pull her foot out from underneath her, and in doing so revealed her innermost being for a second. That second for Roberts was one of the most amazing moments of his life. Immersed in his thoughts, he was caught off guard when Alice noticed his gaze. Their eyes met, and in that instant, Alice realized that her son-in-law now belonged to her. It should be noted that Alice hadn't been getting much male attention lately due to her husband's job as a long-distance captain. Even though she was a mature woman, she still craved arousal, a desire inherent in all women. At this point, it seemed like it was just the two of them, although his wife was also there. Eventually, after exchanging vibes and envisioning a future together, Alice and Robert made a conscious decision not to let their emotions take over. When her mother-in-law had successfully packed up her things and everyone had left the apartment, Alice closed the door. However, at that moment the keys slipped out of her hands and fell to the floor. Robert, who was a floor below, heard the sound and turned around to see his mother-in-law from behind in her stunning figure-enhancing evening dress. At that moment, something stirred in him and the blood rushed to his body. Robert quickly headed for the exit. They got into the car and headed for the restaurant. Not being a fool, Robert assumed he would be taking his mother-in-law home at the end of the evening, so he had already planned to order a meal with aphrodisiac ingredients. Slowly but surely, Robert's fantasies were becoming a reality. Of course, they complemented the meal with magical drinks that lifted his spirits and strengthened his courage. The effect was not long in coming, as his mother-in-law's intentions became quite clear due to the events of the past few hours. There was nothing to fear. Appearing in front of her son-in-law wearing only a towel, she decided to do something more daring, which is often shown in movies when a woman wants to express her desires. She lightly touched her son-in-law's foot with the edge of her shoe, easily finding her target under the table. Naturally, Robert couldn't help but notice that something or someone was touching him. He realized it couldn't be his beloved wife Eliana, as she was sitting close to him, and it would be easier for her to put her hand on his knee or somewhere higher. His attention shifted to his mother-in-law sitting across from him, wearing a red dress with a revealing neckline. Her lips were painted with scarlet lipstick, and she was whispering something to him from afar. Robert tried his best not to show any reaction. After all, she was his mother-in-law. Dinner was coming to an end, and his mother-in-law had already had enough strong drinks. She decided to take the bold step of reminiscing the old days, using a tried and tested method. Music was playing in the restaurant, and she said to Robert, "Today is my special day, and I have another little wish. I haven't slow danced in a long time, and I can't go on putting it off any longer." Robert, like a true gentleman, took Alice's hand and asked her to dance. They were silent for half the dance, lost in the moment, looking into each other's eyes, oblivious to the world around them. Finally, Alice leaned over and whispered softly in her son-in-law's ear, "You dance beautifully and are in great shape. My daughter is lucky to have you. And you have a beautiful body. I'm telling you this as a man. If I were free, I would definitely take you to the bedroom," Robert answered her, and was immediately frightened by what he said. "My tongue is my enemy." "How could you say such a thing to a married woman, and even to your mother-in-law?" My mother-in-law ostentatiously lowered her eyes and thanked for such warm words. "You embarrassed me. I didn't expect you to say that. But thank you. I'm very pleased to hear that you like me very much." But in fact, she liked it very much. Such words, they only added oil to the fire of her burgeoning desire. Toward the end of the dance, Alice kissed her son-in-law softly on the ear and discreetly touched his skin with her tongue, which just lifted Robert into a paradise of pleasure. That was the end of it. Having celebrated his mother-in-law's birthday well, Robert paid the bill and escorted the women home. First his wife, then his mother-in-law. His wife said goodbye to her mother without noticing anything suspicious. Robert drove his mother-in-law to her driveway, but hesitated to get out of the car for fear of losing his temper. Both of them were aware of the situation, but an uncontrollable urge possessed them. "Robert, please help me to the door," the mother-in-law asked, claiming she was wobbly because she had had a little too much to drink. Robert locked the car and, supporting his mother-in-law, headed toward the apartment. As Alice fumbled for her keys and dropped them, Robert instinctively clung to his mother-in-law to keep her from falling. In turn, she clung to him with her whole beautiful body. When the keys were found and the door unlocked, the mother-in-law looked into Robert's eyes and asked, "Will you carry me to the bedroom in your arms?" The mother-in-law couldn't stand it any longer. She wanted to play. While her husband is away on business,